A day after losing one of their F-16s to Syrian air defense missiles, Israel issuing a strong warning this Sunday. Major General Yoel Strick quoted in the Times of Israel saying, Iran wants to establish a forward operating base in Syria whose goal is attacking Israel. We will not allow it. With that, let's bring in Benjamin Netanyahu's spokesman, David Keys. David, nice to see you as always. Forgive me, but doesn't Iran already have a forward operating base in Syria and one in Lebanon called Hezbollah?
Well, Hezbollah is a real threat, but what we've seen Iran attempt to do over the previous months and the previous years is to increase their presence right along Israel's border. And as the general said, we will simply not allow that to happen. So, everywhere that Iran is present in the Middle East, we find death and destruction, whether it's mass death in Syria, whether it's support for Hamas and Hezbollah, what are the
red lines? What are the red lines for Israel? When you say we will not allow it, what brings Israeli military action?
Well, first of all, we won't allow ourselves to be fired upon. And anytime we are fired upon, we will respond in kind. Israel won't allow the transfer of heavy weaponry from Iran through Syria to Lebanon. And Israel won't allow Syria to become a forward operating base of the Iranian regime, a regime which openly calls for Israel's destruction, which inscribes its missiles with Israel will be wiped out. We simply have to take these threats seriously, even if some other people don't.
Well, in the right-hand side of the screen, so the viewers know what we're watching gun sight video, both from Israeli Apache helicopters shooting down the drone that came into Israel yesterday, and then the video of the bombing in retaliation over and over again. I know you may not admit to it, but Israel has been bombing targets inside Syria for a couple of years now to prevent those transfers of heavy weapons, but you've never lost an F-16 in the process. This is what Hezbollah has to say. It says, this is the beginning of a new strategic error which puts an end to the violation of Syrian airspace and territory, talking about them being able to shoot down that F-16. Are they right? Do military tactics have to change? Is there concern about Israeli air superiority?
This is not a new strategic era. Their capabilities have increased, but so has Israel's. And Israel had a very serious and very significant retaliation to this unprovoked attack. But I think it sheds light on a deeper problem of Iran. Iran is attempting to take over not only the Middle East, but as the head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard said, they're on the path to the rule of Islam worldwide. And that's the goal of Iran, the total domination by radicals, the total subversion of democracy. And that's why it's so important that Americans and Europeans and people all over the world understand the nature of this regime. On the one hand, they say they're moderate, but since the nuclear deal has been signed, we've seen a marked increase in Iran's aggression, in Iran's death, in its destruction, and its support for terrorism worldwide.
Well, and also its willingness to project power as well. The one thing we haven't talked about is Russia. They're really in control of Syria. They're certainly the ones behind Bashar Assad's survival over the past couple of years. That Israeli F-16 was brought down by Russian-made surface-to-air missiles. I know your boss, the Prime Minister, talked to President Putin yesterday. What'd they say? What assurances have been given to you by the Russians that they're not going to allow Iran to continue to operate?
Well, they had a very good conversation, and military cooperation between the two states continues, and that cooperation has prevented many tragedies from occurring, so it's important for Israel's national interest. But we've never for one second taken our eye off the ball, which is that the Iranian regime's attempts to colonize the Middle East, to take over Syria, to bring in Shiite militias, to support Hezbollah.
David, I understand this, but I got to button this up. If Syria has air defense missiles that can bring down Israeli planes, that's a real threat to Israeli national security and your ability to stop the group you're just talking about in Iran. Is there going to be a push by the Israeli government to tell the Russians, you've got to pull some of this top-notch hardware back?
Well, Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Putin have had many good conversations on this topic, and we continue to express our red lines. But it must be said that the command and control structure that actually launched this drone was run by Iran, and that's why Israel had no choice but to take out those command and control structures, and will continue to levy heavy responses against any provocation, against any rocket and missile attacks, against any terrorism aimed at Israel.
In reports, at least, that yesterday took out a lot of the Syrian air defense network. Conceivably, those targets were pre-picked. David, appreciate you being with us as always, sir.
Thank you so much.